So a good friend of mine that I worked with, I don't know, 30 some years ago, we sold and competed against each other. We were always going back and forth from being the top salesperson, either one or two. Started off our careers both being young managers, growing up alongside of each other, both going out, becoming, young sales managers, finance managers, then later on general managers. So as we rose, higher in the food chain, a lot of things happen. Dealerships change, new owners, new managers, people sell, OEMs go, change no longer a Pontiac or Oldsmobile franchise, right? So you adapt and you pivot and you learn. But throughout my career, I mean, I've made a lot of different choices. I've gone on the corporate level, many different times. And what my buddy had asked me is, he said, "Hey, how do you go from being the top desk managing guy to marketing?" And I said, "Well, that was very simple career path for me because back in the day when I was a sales manager, nobody really did the ads or worked with the auto trader people walking in. There's a couple of us, the cars.com person walking in. There was, a lot of different things that we did in structuring our ads and our magazines and our newspaper. And somebody had to be responsible for that and pricing the cars to market and being consistent. Um, I was very diligent on the way our pictures are going to look with our call outs on our ads. But, then it became to how I was going to merchandise my front line, how I was going to show that front line display. And I had one store, I had this wonderful guy. His name is Cuevas, and he used to line up my cars amazing. And everybody would laugh because we put out balloons and we'd merchandise the car, have the perfect numbers, make sure everything was clean on the lot, just make sure that our display was there. And everybody's like, "Oh, that doesn't sell cars popping up your hoods." Well, back in the day, my biggest advertising display was the front of our showroom lot. I mean, people would drive by Route 30 on Plainfield, and they would see all of our cars and all the activity and festivity going on. And to me, you know, um, activity breeds success. So Saturday was always a big day. And I know some people are like, "Hey, Saturdays are get too monotonous and they get too overloaded and too busy." Well, you know, I want to talk to 10, 20 people on a Saturday, and I want to sell as many cars as I can. I mean, it's when people have time off. To me, Saturday was the most convenient time because we were closed on Sunday. And the group I was at, we closed a little early on Friday. Now, back in the day, I mean, for us to be there 9, 10 o'clock at night during the week was pretty normal. Most dealerships now close at 7, 8 o'clock. So a lot of people close earlier. But, they were always long days. You get there at 7:30 in the morning and you're there till late. But getting back to what he asked me, though, is how do you go from being a sales manager to being a marketing director to understanding e-commerce to understanding AI to IT and all these other things that I like to go down those rabbit holes on. It really just came down to doing the basics of merchandising. I always had a go-to-market plan. I was always thinking out 3 to 6 months at a time, a year out. I always knew that I never wanted to wait for the manufacturer's incentives to come out. I always had an idea what was happening, the time of year. I always knew that we needed a merchandise service because, service customers are sales customers. They're still the dealership's customers, and many guys just forget about the variable side of it. So to me, I always had a 30% focus, depending upon the time of year, on service consistently. And maybe that comes from being a service writer when I was younger. But the reality is when it came to merchandising, I'm going to make sure that every car is detailed, every car is clearly marked, every car has a buyer's guide on it, every car has a price to it, whether on the car or I have a pricing sheet, so everybody and everything was transparent, so that there was no guessing. If someone asked you a price, you knew what the price was. I wasn't one of those managers that was afraid to tell a customer a price. I wasn't afraid to tell you that what your car could be worth and give you an estimate over the phone. It was never an issue. In fact, I wanted to handle every phone call that came in, and I couldn't. But the thing about it is that before there was BDCs and internet managers, and all that stuff, it came down to me because I knew the inventory. Whenever a car went out to detail and it came back, the first thing I did is went and inspect the car, but then I got in it and I just went over the equipment again. And I kept this routing sheet that told me everything about the car. The thing was huge. It was just took up a huge part of my desk. In fact, it took up so much of my desk, I had to give it its own desk, kind of. But, as I stacked in the cars, set up my deal backs, took my pictures, even though I had a whole bunch of a team, people to do that with me, is I wanted to be out there with them, lead by example, learn everything about every car. And it probably was because when I was a salesperson, I mean, I had a legal sheet or a legal pad, and I would just write every car that came in on trade, every car that we bought at auction, which wasn't a lot. Most of the cars that we sold back in the day, we acquired through trade-in, or we just bought through the service lane. Ironically, 35 years ago, buying cars through the service lane, just doing it because we were incentivized to do it, and so were the service writers. So just simple equation. It was part of our pay plan, so it was part of our life. It just shocks me that we're still talking about the same crap 3 decades later, almost 40 years later. But that's okay. Everybody has their processes and standards and focus. So again, for me, because I want to know everything I can about every car in the lot, touch every car, feel every car, know what every car's problem is, why I wouldn't buy it, why I wouldn't want to sell it. If there's a car that I wouldn't want to sell as a manager, I wholesale that car. I get rid of it. Now, I'm still going to ask opinions because just because I don't like something doesn't mean that everybody else, doesn't care for something. I mean, sometimes I get a high mileage vehicle and people are like, oh no, Dave, don't wholesale that. Just keep it. My biggest fear though is selling something that sucks. And a customer's going to have to fix something on it and it's going to be a nightmare. I mean, for me, it's always a big stressor and, confidence thing, making sure that everybody has a warranty, everybody's protected, every car is inspected, every oil is changed. There isn't any visible things that we know of. I mean, obviously we're not, we don't know the future, but realistically, I mean, when I'm really thinking about the brand and the marketing and the area and the community, I want to be that trusted resource. So I have to know as much as I can about that car. Many people would be like, oh, Dave, you spend too much time educating customers on the phone about a car before they ever come in. And I'm like, you know what? I want to have that common ground. I want to meet their tonality. I want to be their friend. I want to be their trusted resource. I want them to know that I just freaking care. And maybe that's why I sold 30, 40, and probably my biggest month was 57 cars delivered in 1 month. And not that it means shit, because what I did 30 years ago, 25 years ago really doesn't matter. But the reality is that I think caring hasn't changed. The difference, though, is we have AI right now, and AI kind of sets that tone a little bit for us, right? Because as dealers, we spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, and some dealers spend $30,000 a month on advertising, and some spend $100,000 a month on advertising. Some spend more per location. So it's a lot of money, a lot of digital TV spend, ad spend, personnel expense, whatever. Listing sites, Google, vehicle listing ads, OTT. I mean, your email campaigns for service and sales, calling people back about recalls, your AI tools, your digital retailing tools, your website, your Carfaxes, your dealer iPackets. All these things set up this stage. And if you're ingrained in the community and you really look at your brand theater and you think about it as you have this mini series every day and you have to know all the details, you have to have all these standards and processes, but it all starts with merchandising, first of all. And there's merchandising of the vehicle, but there's also merchandising you and the brand and how you are ingrained with the community, how you support people, how you care about people, and being a genuine person. When I worked for Bill Jacobs, one of the things he told us when I was younger is just be genuine. And if you ask Kevin Jacobs, he'll tell you the same thing. So I mean that tonality, that tradition of being genuine, I mean that hasn't changed. I think people feel that and know that, and I think AI now knows that. So when we talk about reputation management, that's great, but it's not just about reviews. It's about answering the reviews. It's about how you handle the negative ones, about how you treat people, how the community sees you, how they see you online, how visible you are. People say social media sucks and it doesn't do anything. It doesn't sell cars. Well, that's because you do it wrong. I don't know how many, probably 80% of websites I look at, and even some of the ones that I've managed and my wife manages for dealers, we have Bite Size Social and we have a handful of dealers that we do social media for. Well, we're not a big enterprise company. And we don't like doing people that aren't local because we like to go and look at a dealership and touch it, feel it, make sure we're seeing genuine things and talking to people. It's difficult. I can understand why big brand um, social media companies have such generic bullshit content, but the problem is duplicate content. I mean, if you go to a social media page for a dealership and you're not talking about the stars of your miniseries, I mean, there's a couple different stars, right? There's your employee stars, there's the community stars, and then there's the biggest probably star. It's your guest star, and that guest star has to want to participate in your dealership and on your social media in your mini series. And that's your customers. So everybody says, "Hey, Dave, you got to be employee centric. You got to be brand centric. You got to be community centric." A lot of damn centrics, right? So, but that is very true. The truth to all of this is that merchandising, understanding the product, okay, understanding good processes, having good processes, then having the right culture, and then understanding your tech and how it fits in your tech stack and how it makes everything easy for everybody to use, for the customer, for you, your employees. It's just gotta be dialed in. Many people sign up with a lot of different shiny objects, or they don't give it time for something to work, or they don't just train on it. They think that everything that you do with a vendor is just something you just add on. So you bolt something on and go, "Hey, this is going to work," but you put nothing into it. So I mean, you get out of things what you put into it. Doesn't matter if it's Auto Trader, doesn't matter if it's Cars.com, doesn't matter if it's Car Gurus, doesn't matter if it's Auto iPack, it doesn't matter if it's social media. Well, yeah, it does all matter. Now that I think about it, right? So let's think about this. You have this wonderful TV show, miniseries. Well, how do you get a preview of your miniseries? How do you want to be part of that? Well, it's those reviews. It's your website. So the internet, the website, those are your first level of salespeople. Those are your first concierge that you meet. All right. So it's got to tell story, and it's got to be easy to use, and it's got to have details so a customer can figure that out. I mean, transparency people want, right? The number one people thing the customer says, makes a decision is trust. So, when you think about it, what does a customer really want to know from you? They want to know that you have the car that they want. They would like to buy it from somebody that's right by their house that they can service and, depend on you. But if they can't trust you, and you can't take the time to answer your reviews, you can't take the time to talk to them, you can't take the time to just slow down. In the dealership world, we rush because somebody had put us to a number and said, "You got to respond right away. You got to do that right away and respond right away." And that's true, we do. But sometimes, you know, it's too fast. Sometimes you need a second, you need to breathe, and you make sure that what you're saying to people is the right thing. Make sure you're reading the notes. Make sure you're talking to the customer. Not everybody that sends in a lead is really a lead, right? Because so many of these portals, they just collect somebody's information, and that customer is still shopping. And then you have to earn the right. Well, part of earning the right is by having a good brand, having a good story to tell. That's why we have the dealer eye packets of the world. I mean, nobody ever needed dealer eye packet or Carfax before, but because people couldn't trust you. And, it used to be you hear about, oh, they got this car at this dealership, some little old lady owned the car. Well, we knew that 50% of the time, maybe even more, there was a bullshit story on Western Avenue. That wasn't a little old lady's car. They had like 5 owners. It came from an auction. We bought it from a rental car company in Florida, whatever the BS story is. So customers then, wanted something to validate that. Then it was, how much warranty, how much is it certified? So, I mean, we're always building a story around our brand and what will we do different? We have an exchange policy. We have a cafe. We have a car wash. We have amenities. There's always something that we do a little bit different. But, you can only rewrite the book so many different ways when in reality, people just want to know they can trust you and that you care. So, I mean, I don't think that's too much to ask for. So when it comes to branding yourself, when you're sitting on your ass in the showroom floor or you're sitting at the tower as a sales manager, I understand you have a lot to do and you're getting pulled 20 different ways. But bottom line is that this is a profession, and your part of it is being on stage, is engaging with people. So you need to get off your ass and do an early manager introduction so people know you and you're there to support them. But before you can ever do that, you have to have your ground game right. You have to have your generative SEO right. You have to have your brand theater right, because all this builds something called a knowledge graph. And that knowledge graph is so important because that's how AI bases it. It says, hey, I have 200 points in this spider web. So you have this big graph, and all these things lead to you. It's stuff about the OEM, your Google business page, your advertising, your reviews, your social media, your CSI scores, how you treat people on the phone, how the community sees you, how you're in the, around town, how you're pricing the market, your cars are clean, your people have a good attitude, you're not treating just people disrespectful. Um, you're treating them like humans, right? So, people talk. And so you got to be part of the community. You got to help people. And most dealers are good people, but most people don't know about it. And that's the thing because, you know, not everybody is made to be a salesperson, but we do it anyway. But not everybody is an actor and wants to be part of a miniseries either. But we're to the point now where that because we're such a transparent world, we're such a social media world, that people sit there all day long and hold little live conferences talking about cars, and they sell cars because of it. Why? Because people want to have you earn the right to know them. People want to get to know you. People want experiences from you. And social media has become so transparent, and it's made us so kind of knowledgeable, but it's also made us so distant. Used to be kids would get out, go to the park, go play. We don't do that anymore. People sit and play a video game and play on a computer all day. It's not the same, and people do it, Jap, and there's nothing wrong with what people do. It's just shopping's changed. People have an AI persona to help them make a decision because there's a lack of experiences. So people want positive experiences. People want a way to trust you. So I'm going to land my plane here, but the bottom line is that if you want it to be into marketing, it starts with caring, paying attention to detail, watching the metrics, understand what works for your people. And yeah, there's a lot of experts out there, and I'm just a talking head, and I learn from all the different great vendors that work with me and teach me things. But you can learn so much from AI and just role playing. You can learn so much from Google and understanding the analytics behind things. But it doesn't matter all the metrics, because you can have all this wonderful traffic, you can have all this engagement on your cars, you can have all this engagement on your VDPs, you can get all these leads. Until people decide to come and see you, it doesn't really matter. So, you have to be a good concierge. Now, there's a couple different ways of looking at that, right? You have a BDC, and, first of all, I mean, a BDC is your second person. Your website, internet's your first, your community. They're all kind of, to me, one and the same thing. But then your BDC or cashier or whoever makes that first then point of physical contact, heck, it could be your chatbot. It could be your AI. But whatever it is, it's an extension of your sales department. It is your sales department. It is a salesperson. So to me, a BDC person, a salesperson are one and the same. Now, did they have different roles? Did they take people down a different part of the funnel? Yes. But bottom line is, what do people want? Some people want a quick answer, right? They just want to know the car's available and they want to come in. There's nothing wrong with that, right? But then what sets you apart? I was listening to Clubhouse, and I was listening to a gentleman by the name of Alex Flores, and he was talking about that. And I get it, because everybody would say, hey, Dave, you tell the customers way too much. You talk to them. And I'm like, I mirror the customer. I talk to them. I'm going to give them as much detail as possible because I want them to remember me, and I want them to remember that I'm here for them. And I want them to know all the questions, because when my friend comes and visits me in the showroom, it's like, hey, we know each other. We've already had a couple conversations. They know I've sent them the pictures. They know I've sent them the video. They know I've sent them the Carfax. They know I've sent them the iPad. They know I've sent them a copy of the window sticker. I've made it so easy for them to just say, hey, this is what they really want, to trust me. And even then, people come in and they see something else they like. We talk about something else and they change. And not everybody's the car that we're talking about, but we're talking. And time equals commitment. and we're building a relationship. And, I have people that I've sold cars to 20, 30 years ago that still bump into them, reach out to me, say, hey, so, those are people that I'm happy that I've known them, and I can refer them on to whoever, because obviously I don't sell cars directly anymore. But that happens pretty often where someone calls me every week and says, hey, I'm looking for this. And even in conversation, everywhere I go, somebody's always talking about, oh, I got a guy, I know somebody. And, that's great. So again, when it comes to marketing, just have to care and trust, pay attention to the details, follow up. This business is changing with AI. Yeah. There's a lot of snake oil out there and stuff for dealers to mess with. There's a lot of stuff that just doesn't work. But the reality is that you have to experiment, you have to try, you have to talk to people, you have to figure out what's best for your dealership, what's best for your people. And that's what's really going on today. So if you want to change, if you want to make a difference, it's not just one thing of having the cheapest car, the best pictures, the best phone call, the most appointments. It's everything. The internet's all about everything. It's all about instant gratitude. It's all about continuing to be a good concierge to people. And that's all people want. They just want to be taken care of. They want to know they weren't screwed over. There's nothing wrong with being entitled to making a profit. If you have a good car, you have something unique to tell the damn story and justify why you're a little bit more. But if you can't do that, you get what you know, you get. I mean, I have a lot of rude ways I could say that, but I'm not gonna. I'm just gonna say that keep caring about your customers more than you do about your commission check. Now, I'm not saying you can't make a profit in this business. I'm not saying you're not entitled to. I'm just saying that you'll sell more cars by just treating people right. That's all. Have a great day.